You're listening to the Dynamic Thinking Project podcast. This is episode 45, and today's topic is, do aliens exist? Hey everyone, Adam Muselli here. Welcome to the Dynamic Thinking Project podcast. If this is your first time listening, then thanks for coming. This podcast is released every Friday, and show notes are found at the website, themindtechinstitute.com. It's all one word. Come back often and feel free to add this podcast to your favorite RSS feed or iTunes. You can also follow me on Twitter and Facebook. All links are in the show notes and website. And now, let's get started. This is another interesting episode. Of course, as any other topic, this requires an open mind because this is one of the most controversial questions that maybe has ever been asked. And maybe for hundreds of years, people also wondered about the same question, or maybe even thousands of years. The question is, do aliens really exist? As I explained in the previous episode, that the very word alien is anything foreign, and not necessarily just an extraterrestrial or extra-dimensional being, although this is our topic today. I also have been asked if aliens exist in almost every hypnotherapy class that we do, especially during the regression section or the regression segment in the hypnosis training, as some people claim they have been abducted by aliens, and more details about the abduction, if it really happened, can be uncovered during a regression session. And if you would like to study and become a fully qualified hypnotherapist, neurolinguistic programming, an NLP, a life coach, or even a counselor, all you have to do is visit mti.edu.au or themindtechinstitute.com. You'll find all these courses online with many other courses once you click on the online courses tab. And also all our diplomas and advanced diplomas are accredited and recognized worldwide. And for more information, all can be found on the website, themindtechinstitute.com. With that being said, and going back to our main topic, in this episode, we're not going to talk about UFOs or abductions. We'll leave that to other episodes. Now, we're only going to talk about if aliens exist and why it's logical and rational to think that they do exist. Now, here are some objections a religious person might object by saying, well, aliens aren't mentioned in my good book. Okay, but in my studies and almost all the major religions and many cultures mention different beings other than humans. For example, and honestly, I can do this forever, but I'll just quote one or two things from each religion, and I'll be trying to keep this episode around 20 minutes. Let's start first with the Torah. There are many verses and passages in the Torah, especially in Genesis, Isaiah, Ezekiel, Daniel, and other books in the Old Testament mentioned those beings. For example, in Genesis 6:1 to 6:4, it says, "And it came to pass when man began to increase upon the earth, and daughters were born to them. The Bani Elohim saw the daughters of man were good, and they took themselves wives from whoever they chose. The Nephilim were on earth in those days, and also afterward, when the Bani Elohim would consort with the daughters of man, who would bear to them children. They were the mighty who, from old, were men of renown." So they bear to them children. I think this is some kind of hybrid beings. Now, the question is, who were the Bani Elohim and the Nephilim? Bani Elohim literally means the children of the gods, or godlike, perhaps ones with special powers that man did not yet have. Now, don't get confused though, because in Judaism and Islam, Yahweh or Allah is one and unique. There is no Trinity. But it's in the omni sense. I mean, I'm not going to get all theological, but you can research it yourself if you're interested in your own time. Also, the Nephilim in the literal meaning is the fallen ones. But fallen from where? You see, the point is there was intelligent beings before Adam ve Chava, which is Adam and Eve in English. In the New Testament, there are many verses, especially in the book of Revelations, but this verse from the book of Colossians, chapter 1, verse 16, it says, "For by him all things were created, in the heaven and on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or dominions or rulers or authorities, all things were created through him and for him." The Quran is also filled with such verses, but simply let's take the very first verse in the very first chapter. It's called Al-Fatiha, or the opening, verse 1. It says, "All praise is due to Allah, Lord of the worlds," not world, but worlds in plural. Notice Allah, Elohim, El, Al, Ah, Him, and I am, when there is I am, in Hebrew, it means plural, or it can be plural of respect, but I digress. There are lots of verses mentioned, the jinn, along with the humans, as there is a whole chapter called Al-Jinn, which is chapter 72 in the Quran. And in the Quran, it's always mentioned the word jinn and ins, always together, or most of the times it's mentioned together. Now, the word jinn, those extra-dimensional beings, which I explained in the previous episode, the word jinn also means invisible, and the word ins, as referred to humans, it means visible. So jinn is invisible and humans are visible. The meaning of those words, of course, that's in Arabic. So the jinn can make themselves visible and invisible at will, and simply by changing their vibrational frequency, as every dimension does have a different frequency signature. Of course, that's in the theoscientific sense, and jinn being extra-dimensional beings, it means they can travel through different dimensions. So the meaning is, even in the Quran, as the other monotheistic and Abrahamic religions, they don't deny or reject the aliens as foreign beings to humans. And by the way, the word aliens as foreigners used to be mentioned literally as aliens in the first book of Peter, chapter 2, verse 11. It used to say, "Beloved, I urge you as aliens and strangers to abstain from fleshly lusts which wage war against the soul." But the word aliens was replaced with just foreigners, with just the word foreigners in all Bibles after the year 1999. And now you'll find it read as, "Dear friends," instead of "beloved, dear friends, I urge you as foreigners and exiles to abstain from sinful desires, which wage war against your soul." Now, of course, the verse referred to aliens as foreigners, maybe as, I don't know, human foreigners, I guess. But anyway, speaking of the Quran, in a verse called Al-Shura, chapter 42, verse 28, says something interesting. It says, "And among his signs is the very creation of the heavens and earth, and of all the living creatures which he has caused to multiply throughout them." Yes, you heard it right. Multiply throughout them, referring to the heavens and the earth, as there are creatures living and multiplying through them, as the heavens, plural, and earth. Now, that could be just creatures in the heavens as just singular cell organisms, or even maybe full intelligent beings, and maybe more intelligent even than us. Sometimes I wonder, some people who follow these three Abrahamic religions still deny other beings could be living somewhere else, and even maybe amongst us, while their holy books is saying it clearly. I mean, they all must believe in angels and devils, but when you mention extraterrestrial beings or aliens, their tones start to change as, no, it's irrational or illogical, such things exist, but angels and demons, yeah, they do exist. Well, that makes sense, maybe. And by the way, please check everything I said and I quoted from those three holy books. I am not a theologian or biblical scholar. Everything I've said here is just based on my own research and my own social and behavioral science studies, as well as my multilingual skill, which allows me to read those books in their original form. Now, other religions, including the polytheistic religions such as Buddhism, Sikhism, Hinduism, etc., also have such beings. For example, the Vedas and the Bhagavad Gita, especially in the epic of Mahabharata, also filled with such beings. In the Mahabharata, there is an epic where clearly depicts the Vimanas, which can easily be flying saucers or UFOs. And if you think logically and link all these connections, for example, different lokas, such as Indra Loka, Vishnu Loka, Brahma Loka, etc. Loka is a Sanskrit word and it means world, or can be also translated as planet. So there is multi-limbed Devi, blue-skinned Vishnu, four-headed Brahma, three eyes Shiva, elephant head Ganesh, and a half ape, half man, Hanuman, etc. You see, if you think about all this logically, and if you read from Srimad Bhagavatam 3:15 to 3:23, you will notice the description of planet Vaikunta, where the Lord Vishnu himself stays. The passage says, in the Vaikunta planet, the inhabitants fly in their airplanes, accompanied by their wives and consorts, and eternally sing of the character and activities of the Lord. And to the end of the passage. It's too long, but beautifully written, and it reminds me of chapter 65 also in the Quran. It's amazing how similar they are. I mean, all religious holy books are very similar, but yet they still fight with each other. But I digress. So please read Srimad Bhagavatam 3:15 to 3:23 and chapter 65 from the Quran, which is also called Al-Waqi'ah. Both also speak of different beings and places, very, very similar to each other. You see, almost 7 different religions that I know of have similar beings, and I am too careful not to cherry pick or to take verses and different passages out of context. So that was about theological hypotheses, and there are many other verses and passages, but what about science? You see, one of the most compelling arguments that alien life exists is the Drake equation. In 1961, renowned astronomer and astrophysicist Frank Drake developed this equation in order to estimate just how likely it is that we are not alone. The formula considers a bunch of different factors, like how many stars have solar systems, the number of planets that could support life, how long these planets live, and how much of that life could be intelligent. The equation was tested in 2001 using our own galaxy, the Milky Way, and the results were pretty impressive. There are 160 billion planets just in the Milky Way, in our galaxy. And the study found that, statistically speaking, hundreds of thousands of those planets could support life, meaning that intelligent alien life is mathematically highly probable and will probably be much closer than we think. Also, if you think about it, the age of the universe is about 13.8 billion years old, and planet Earth has been around for about 4.5 billion years of that, with the oldest evidence of life being 3.9 billion years. Of course, that was probably a single-cell organism, and it wasn't until about 7 million years ago that the first humanoids evolved, and then finally you get the Homo erectus, the Homo habilis, the Neanderthals, or actually the Homo sapiens, just a few 100,000 years ago. But even within that time, recorded history is only about 10,000 years old, probably because we didn't develop writing until about that time. And of course, numerous cataclysmic events that kept resetting our civilization. The point is, even if it's 4 billion years to get a civilization, the universe is way older than that. An extraterrestrial species could become technologically advanced several times over during that time. If there is an extraterrestrial civilization only 100,000 years before us and was evolving at the same rate and the same speed and conditions as we are, then imagine what they could have achieved. And keep in mind, 100,000 years is nothing in the cosmic clock. It's like a pocket change to a billionaire. So who knows how many alien cultures could be out there. There's also the theory of panspermia. A big challenge in science is to explore the condition which led inanimate matter to become self-replicating, evolving through natural selection. Most theories evolve the early environment, but one theory is little different. The theory of panspermia. The theory of panspermia states that life didn't start on Earth, but instead was brought here. Now, could ancient alien did it as the movie Prometheus? Of course, the story is taken from the Sumerian story of creation, as many have wrote about it also, including Eric Van Daniken, Zachariah Sitchin, and others. So panspermia actually refers to the transference of bacteria. Microscopic critters were, if we can say, hitchhiking on asteroids or comets, which struck the Earth, depositing life into the seas billions of years ago. Also, we know that volcanic eruptions on, of course, large impacts could feasibly throw out rocky debris into space. This often spreads life further from planet to planet. So it could very well be that we are the aliens ourselves, and that countless worlds have been seeded just like ours. Also, knowing the building blocks of life can help us identify where it might arise. And for example, scientists theorize that the molecule hydroxylamine is a building block of life. It's comprised of nitrogen, hydrogen, and oxygen, elements which are common here on Earth. And astronomers have detected it in abundance around a star just 1,000 light years away from our solar system. So it is very possible that where we find the building blocks of life, hopefully we can find life itself. But there are also scientific models based on hypothetical biochemistry that states that life on other planets may use different building blocks. We are carbon-based life forms because there is a lot of carbon on Earth. But perhaps on another planet, something like silicon is the most abundant element, and therefore life could evolve from that. If that is the case, extraterrestrial life could exist in many more locations than we even imagine. And if you think about natural selection, you see evolution may mandate that there is extraterrestrial life out there. And not only that, but there must be life which has technology and use it to travel through space. Natural selection is the cornerstone principle of evolution. It is the idea of survival of the fittest. The idea that organisms adapt to their environment and eventually thrive because the genetic mutations which make survival possible are actually passed on to the next generation of that mutation or of that cell. I mean, we even see it throughout Earth. Millions of organisms adapted to their surrounding environments. So if we assume that some form of natural selection leads to simple life elsewhere, then that same process will lead over billions of years, lead to creatures like ourselves who can change our environments. So the chances of other beings are high. Call them aliens or whatever. Even if we ignore the religious factor, every ancient civilization on Earth had contact with flying people, which they misunderstood sometimes as gods or confused them sometimes as gods. Everyone interpreted them in a different way. And every god comes from the sky. They live in different worlds, and whenever they appeared, they had halos, they had light and smokes which accompany them. They have superpowered weapons and technologies, and we can see the same thing in many civilizations. All of them are worshipping or following some super intelligent being or beings who some of them visited Earth in one form or another. I personally don't deny other worlds or beings that we cannot see in our eyes and our limited visual spectrum. So, and as always, let's keep an open mind, and certainly we don't know what we don't know. That's it for today, and once again, if you would like to study and become a fully qualified hypnotherapist, neurolinguistic programming NLP, a life coach, or even a counselor, all you have to do is visit mti.edu.au or themindtechinstitute.com, and you'll find all these courses along with many other courses once you click on the online courses tab. And for more information, all can be found online, themindtechinstitute.com. Thank you for listening. If you have any question, of course, you can email me. The email is on our website, themindtechinstitute.com. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, especially if you are listening to this podcast on YouTube. The Dynamic Thinking Project podcast is released every Friday. Until next time, take care and enjoy your weekend. This is Adam Muselli, signing out.